So there's a gentleman that I've had on the show a couple times. His name is Dr. Daniel Stanislawski. He has a podcast called Open Secrets, and inside there, he takes on a lot of books that are put out by these family lineages. Even one put out by the Who, one of them written by Klaus Schwab himself. And inside there gets into the funding for a lot of these wars and how they're tied directly back to those ancient families, those serpent brotherhoods. And you and
Sure.
I think our last conversation, we talked about like the Rosicrucians, the Order of 300, the 12. We talked about the Illuminati, the Freemasons, and where those ties come from. It's so to say, folks, jump back and watch that episode if you haven't, because there's a lot of strings that like Gary just sort of gave you like the monkey's nest to, that you've got to unravel to really get a full understanding of what he's talking about here. Everything, so to say, is by design, and everything, so to say, is all interconnected. Like none of this here is done in isolation. It's all leading towards this convergent singularity moment. uh it's going to get dark, real
Yeah.
dark before it gets light.
Yeah. I mean, U.S. banking was sponsored by the Rothschilds,
Mm.
who were created after the fall of the Knights Templar, who controlled banking and invented modern banking, and they needed to replace it outside the church. And the Bauer family was assigned in Germany, and they grew rich through Masonic sponsoring and wars and became the banking arm outside the church. And when they set up the London Bank in 1810 to 12, they changed their name from Bauer to Rothschild because they wanted to separate themselves from that sort of Jewish connection. And so, yeah, whether or not it's the banking system in the U.S. or all the great corporations, the Carnegies, the
Mm-hmm.
Morgans,
Oh, Morgans.
the Rockefellers, they're the stable of agents that were all funded to become powerful by the Rothschilds, whom they're completely loyal to. So they're the ones, the Rothschilds, they did some funding, but the US was created by the secret societies to be the launching pad for world government. And so it was mostly US banking that funded, um, the Civil War in Russia, and then funded the Nazis to power. And then they had to fund the Allies to take care of both, the problems, or the Nazi problem, because the Nazis got out of control before they took care of the communists. So, and they keep doubling
Mm.
down on the same kinds of strategies, but it creates a sort of chaos. And so banking within the church um, was also wrested away from the Vatican. And most of the wealth in Spain, I mean, in France, went to, in terms of currency, there's some stuff that went to Scotland, as I talk about in book 1. And book 2, I talk about most of the wealth went to Switzerland, where the Hospitallers, a sister organization, was already located. And the Hospitallers have a white cross, the same cross that's on the Swiss flag, the home of world banking, where all off the books money is kept, and nobody really knows how much is there. And it's an astounding number. It makes Elon Musk or Bezos or any one of the major billionaires we know look like a pauper by comparison.
Yeah.
And so they had to get control of the banking inside of the Catholic Church too. And I cover this in book 2, because I didn't cover it off. And I also cover off the Jesuits, who it's done through. And I didn't get into the Jesuits for reasons, but I cover them in detail in book 2, because I think now it's not a side issue, and it doesn't sort of get people say, well, I don't want to listen to him because the Jesuits run everything. But then people say about the Illuminati do it, and they have all of these different ideas. So that's why I showed the Thelemic tree organizational structure in book 2 as well. But anyways, back to the Jesuits, who are going to be funded by a fellow by the name of Francis Borgia. And if that name sounds familiar, he comes from a line of popes.
Hmm.
And his grandfather's a Pope Borgia. He's part of the black nobility, and he's a noble Basque as well. But he ends up being initiated in the Mary Mysteries, and sets off as a commission to change the Roman Church from within. And he sets up this basically military base type knight order. But he ends up in the Inquisition in jail, and Francis Borgia, who's in the court of the King of Spain, as his major, right hand man, bails him out and then funds him because he likes what he's doing and saying. And so 1529 is, I think, when he bails them out. And then by 1535, they're starting to gain papal bulls to make them an official order that's going to take over seminary schools and then all education within the Roman Church. So same thing, the Royal Society is done in the West to take over the education and then launch their educated elites into the seminary schools to take those over. But what happens is that, Francis of Loyola is going to die, and there's going to be an interim leader. But in 1565, guess who is the third Grand Master? Borgia. So now you have this Royale, the leader of the Montesa order that was created in 1317 by the King of Spain to seize all of the Templar assets so the Roman Church couldn't get their hands on it.
Yep.
So this Royale order, he's the leader of, and he's going to become now the leader of the Jesuits in 1565. And then working with the King of Spain, he's going to bankrupt the Rome through wars, and they're going to get control of the Vatican banking, and then move it to Switzerland.
Man.
And before that, it was funded by the junior level of the black nobility versus the senior black nobility of Italy. So the merchants like the Medicis and the merchants of Venice who came over from Phoenicia, Tyre, that area, that set up shop in Italy. They were funding the banking before it was taken over by the Royals and then moved to Switzerland.
Wow. And
now the
isn't it
Rothschilds
amazing?
moved their banking there as well. Yeah.
Well, and isn't it just amazing with how heavy money played into all of this, how we then have later on here in the States our own currency set up on a fiat money system, which is illegal according to the Constitution, but yet we still have that in play. And if anybody out there is paying attention, we understand that inflation is that hidden tax that we're being hit with. And it really does, as you put it, it seems like they're trying to wipe out the entirety of the middle class. Like the amount that you pay for certain things is designed to keep you within a certain sort of spending bracket. You're for most people out there, they're one or two paychecks away from total abject poverty, and you have to work like a cat trying to bury a turd on a marble floor just to stay in one place financially and be able to just provide yourself the few amenities that you need to keep going, until you have a few breakaways who have that entrepreneurial spirit, who are able to make money, and then they're able to project their voice out there much further and quicker, via whatever tools they have at their disposal. And those ones oftentimes are tried to be silenced very quickly, or they try and build some scandal up behind them because, oh crap, they were able to break out of the mold that we had envisioned for the whole of society, and now we've got to discredit what they've said. Let's point to their family lineage. Let's call them a drunk and a psychopath, and let's just try and diffuse whatever ammunition they have in store. So to say, it's also interconnected and very, very dark. And correct me if I'm wrong, but don't the Swiss guards even set up outside the Vatican as well?
Yeah, they protect the Pope.
Wow. Gosh, it's also incestuous, and it's so frustrating because, like, again, folks, like, just dive into Gen 6 conspiracy, because when you get into the serpent family lines and the serpent brotherhoods within the first of the books, that was such a tremendous, mind-blowing trip there. And like, it was like each chapter was devoted to very specific timeline oriented segments inside there, and it provides a whole lot more context to what you just broke down for us in the last 10 minutes. So
yeah, that's what makes book two so unique is that you're talking about the same topic, but not only the perspective is different, but by doing so, I can bring so much more new information that I didn't put into book one. And that was the beauty of When I Saw the Light as to why I should write the book. And so, is there some overlap? Sure. Not much, but only as much as I need to, so that I'm not losing people in book two, right? So you
Well,
have to
yeah.
give enough there, and then also give the reference back to the original book, so you can go to the chapter and read all of that if you wanted to do it. And so, but it's all new information, and it just ties it all together in ways that it's just wonderful to hear people saying that I I couldn't believe there could be that much more information that needed to be added to book one, and it really all came out of the Bible.
Well, and like by the time you're done putting all the pieces together, it almost feels like Charlie Day from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he's got this vision board hide behind him, and there's all these pieces of yarn that are connecting all the points
Yeah,
together.
yeah,
But like you said, it is very, very biblically based, and it's so refreshing to see that, because I have plenty of books inside my library that, as I mentioned at the top of the conversation, the information is good and it's lurid, but a lot of it doesn't have any actual biblical reference for, and it's frustrating because it's like, I'm here with you conceptually, but
yeah.
where is the validation?
How do I make how do I make that fit from within my belief system?
Yeah. So
And you have to be able to do that biblically, and so um, and you can, but uh, as I said, and I probably wouldn't have been able to write book two unless I wrote book one, because you had to get a lot of that other stuff on the table before you could get at really, because nobody's written a book like this, and it is totally unique, and it goes deeper into the Bible than any other book I think that's ever been written that's out there other than the Bible. But we need today, because of how our world works, we need to have a little bit of help to dig into the what's really going on in the Bible, because as you mentioned, we've been trained only to listen to the passages they tell us every Sunday.
yeah, a bit of a humble brag there. Real quick, Wiz says some
Yeah.
people read the Bible, but Gary can read the Bible.